What it do, family? Your boy Drumming in 412. Just getting used to this once again. Second time going live on YouTube. See what's up with the family. Yeah, our name is joint Monotheism. It's still deity worship. Because a lot of times they'll think that just because you say, one God, they think you're referring like you connected, They think that's the creator, but it's not, First off, the scripture starts off with polytheism. My tongue twisting up when I say that. But the worship of more than one, the worship of more than one God. The Bible starts off with the worship of more than one God. Man, so that's supposed to be God singular talking, but it's referencing God as someone else is there, as a group of beings. The Elohims. Elohims is plural, meaning more than one. So Genesis starts off with polytheism, not monotheism. I could be saying that a little tongue twisted, but you get the point. The Bible starts off with the worship of more than one God. And we really don't see too much the concept of the worship of one God until we get to around Moses and Abraham, around them time periods. But in the beginning of the text, it starts off with the worship of more than one God. So now, where a lot of people still get it confused at is that they say, okay, well, we know that the worship of more than one God is not right and exact. So we're going to cut that down to one God and one deity. And then we find ourselves still in the same position because now we're just worshiping one deity instead of worshiping many, but we're still worshiping the deity. Regardless of what name you want to put that deity, what name you want to put on that deity is still a deity worship. So by you saying you worship one God, it's not referencing the creator. It's just referencing one deity that you selected out of many. What it do, family? Tuned in, let's go. Yeah. All right. Now I know where the camera at. So yeah. So when you read the Bible in English, it really doesn't let you know that the duality is there. It'll say God, Lord God, it'll say these titles. And as the reader, you will believe that these titles is referring to one deity when they're not. These are different titles bestowed on different deities within the kingdom. But the Bible doesn't really explain the kingdom for you to get a correct understanding of differentiating the two. So when we talk about monotheism, so when Moses came with, "Hail O Israel, the Lord thy God is one," he was basically breaking you away from the multiplicity of gods and bringing you into one deity, according to the Bible text. Because in the OAHSPE, it shows that it differentiate the gods from the deity, so you could know the difference between, the gods from the creator, so you can know the difference between the two. But when we come to the Bible, we really don't see that. We just see the deities running around, one being supreme over the other. Because in one breath, God said, "There is no saviors besides me. I stand alone." But then another breath, it talks about somebody sitting on the right side of God, being present with God, according to the biblical text of this. So this is where the confusion comes in at, because now the God of Israel claims to have the one God, but then you have the Muslims screaming that Allah is the one God. But both of these gods are still deities, because both of these gods are in the image of man. Now they'll tell you that Allah is not in the image of man, but where they go wrong at is that when you do textual criticism, you'll see that the Quran, they'll claim that they give credence to the God of the Bible, and we already discussed that the God of the Bible is a deity. So that would make Allah a deity as well, as if you're going to be sharing the same God. So they're fighting over the same God with different attributes at different time periods given. So look at that. Look at the depths of that. You know what I'm saying? They over here fighting over a God that is not even the creator. So that God is winning souls on both sides. They're rolling the dice and they just collecting souls as these souls go to war and die in the name of these gods. And these false gods, angels, emissary, collect the souls to bring them to the heavenly kingdoms and make them subservient slaves. But only OAHSPE gonna give you that. The Bible ain't gonna give you that. Because if the Bible gave you that, then you'll be questioning your God as to whether or not shall we even be following such a God. It'll give you those options. No doubt what's going on, King. But yo, so that's the thing you got to question when dealing with monotheism. It's still the worship of a deity. You're not really essentially dealing with the creator. It's really hard to use the Bible to get an understanding of the creator because the deities are so wrapped up in the Bible. The Lord God is, thus saith the Lord. There is nowhere where the Lord makes the distinction between who is him compared to the Lord God and the Lord or God. Or if you want to take it to the Hebrew, El, Elohim. El is just referring to one deity. Elohim is referring to many deities. So these are the things you got to really question because none of these deities are deifying or showing reverence to the creator. None of the deities are showing reverence to the creator. They're showing reverence to themselves. The deities are telling you to worship them. That's what they're telling you. Peace, what's going on? Go, I see you. Word up. Don, how you doing? Would it be correct that there is one creator who created gods who can create? Yeah, see, the creator has a system and function the way the creator do things. So gods is a title bestowed on angels, and angels are one-time human beings. So in order to become an angel, you have to be a terrestrial being first. So the planet goes through ages. Every solar system has planets that go through 4 ages, including the sun. And there's a time when the planet becomes inhabitable for mortals and angels. I mean, for mortals and animals. And it is this time that mortals have the possibility of becoming angels as they cross over in spirit during the inhabitable time on the planet. And as these angels or spirits cross over, being earthborn spirits, they begin to mature in the atmospheric realm. And as they mature, they take on titles as God, Lords, and Saviors under the authority of the Creator. So that's how the function is laid out. So if an angel or extraterrestrial or celestial being comes from a far-off planet or a far-off etherian or atmospheric world to us, he will tell you in truth that he started off just like us as terrestrial beings. And then after death, he progressed through these atmospheric or etheric regions. And then that's how the story goes. So yeah, it's an ecosystem, as above, so below. But we all under the authority of the Creator. God and Lord God are not the Creator. Peace, what's going on, fam? I see you. Friend, Shalom. Yes. Edwin, I see you. It's good. I got any questions, holla. I'm just here. You know what I mean? I got the tea brewing downstairs, so I'm just taking the time to just get on YouTube Live, get more familiar with it, answer some questions, drop some gems. Topic is, you know what I mean, the worship of one God, but it's still dealing with a deity. In order to know that if that deity is the creator or not, is determined if that deity has shape and image. If you worship a deity that has shape and image, that's not the creator. The creator is ever present, not in the image of man. The only way we see the creator is through creation, through natural creation and through cosmos, and through the cosmos, cosmology, through the sun cycles, the moon cycles, astrology, astronomy. All those are aspects of the creator. Just like how the Egyptians say, like, you know, the Neterus or the gods of Egypt are aspects of nature. Some of that is right and exact, but some of that you got to question because when you go through the text, the book of coming forth by day and night tells you something different than what they telling you. You know, so each civilization have areas of civilization. You know, an area of entertainment, or area of arts and crafts, but then it has an area of religion and spirituality. So they try to, you know, deny the fact that ancient Egypt was dealing with deities, but every civilization dealing with deities. It shows you the Hindus had deities. You know what I mean? The Canaanites and Mesopotamian deities. So all these people, all these nations had deities except the Egyptians. Like, come on, let's be realistic here. So The reality is that many of these people are still worshiping deities, although it's the one deity they claiming to be the creator. Lark, what's good? I just learned the true God calls faith his brothers and tells you whom he was sent by Jehovah the Creator. It does not explain that in the Bible. Exactly. In the OAHSPE, it teaches that God is your brethren. You know what I mean? Just like your brethren, a good friend of yours, or just like the president. You know what I mean? Like when Obama was in office, he was your brethren. They were one of our brothers. He done made it to the top. He done made it to the presidency, the head honcho of the state. It's the same thing, or the country, I should say. It's the same thing with the heavenly kingdoms with God. God is just a title bestowed on an angel to run the heavenly kingdom. No different than earth, as above, so below. But the Bible doesn't explain the heavenly kingdom and the titles and ranks of angels. So they got you believing that God is the creator when God is nothing more than a captain of the planet, honestly speaking. So the duty of God is he's the mediator between you and the creator for you to ascend off the planet. God is the school teacher. His duty is to educate you in the grades and maintain your grades so you can continue to go to the grades until you graduate out of this school. And the school is earth and etheria. Earth, the lower realm, the earth itself, that's like junior high school and high school. Atmospheria, when we cross over and die and progress in the atmospherian world, that's like college. And the etherian worlds beyond is like the universities, the higher realms of education. And each schooling, there's a teacher and a principal that reside over the school. And his duty and their whole job is for their students to graduate with high grades. That's the only way you're going to ascend in the spiritual realm, with high grades, grades above 80. 99 is the highest grade. Just like school. If you got a failing grade, you ain't going to pass. It's the same rules. It's crazy how it's so similar. When you read the OAHSPE, the parallels is just that similar. So it makes more sense when the term as above, so below is expressed when you have this understanding from the OAHSPE. Throat puncher, what's good? Yo, that's a wild ass name. What's good though? Shalom, my brother. The Bible has scriptures speaking of many gods. There is only one master creator, and that is Jehovah. Exactly, no doubt. Jehovah's the creator. And the crazy thing is that the Jehovah in the Bible, they plagiarized it. They idolized Jehovah in the Bible. Because when Abraham said, he built the place over there in Jehovah Jireh, it titles him Lord in the Bible. So it's crazy how they put titles upon the creator, Jehovah's name. So it'll say God Jehovah. See, that's incorrect. You can't put no titles on the creator name. The creator is the creator ever present. As soon as you put a title on the creator and given that, if that title comes with shape and form and you place that on the creator, then we have blasphemy. We have sin against the creator. We have idol worship because now you placed an identity on something that is incomprehensible. See, Jehovah in the OAHSPE stays incomprehensible. It stays above. As high and intelligent as these Aetherian gods are, they'll stoop down to the level of our damn near ignorance on pondering the creator with all their intelligence. They still ponder on the magnificence of the creator. And although they could travel from solar system to solar system, they still ponder just like us on the glories of the creator. The gods were derived from guides, no doubt. Ancient Watchman, my brother, what's good, King? What's good? I see you. Word up. Yeah, man, I see they be going at the Watchmen hard, Joe. But see, they hate when people bring out information that goes outside the normal spectrum of people's thinking. That's the whole purpose of being human, being conscious, being logical and rational thinkers. We got to go outside the box. You got to question these things. The Bible always wasn't the Bible. It was books added to the Bible throughout the decades that the Bible was compiled. It was at one point, there wasn't no New Testament to be compiled to the Tanakh. Before the Tanakh, there wasn't no 7-day story creation to go with the Torah. And before the Torah, Moses learned all the wisdoms of the Egyptians. So the mystery schools was in Egypt. You think Moses came out of Egypt and ain't bring nothing? Think about it. If we left America right now, what we going to bring with us? What we know. If we had to leave and flee America right now with pen and paper, and we had to write down, what we going to write down? The language we know, which is English. We ain't going to be out there writing Hebrew, Paleo-Hebrew in the wilderness of North America. The ancient Israelites that grew up under, in Egypt, the 400 years that Israel spent in Egypt, the Hebrews spent in Egypt, in that last period of time when they was right before the go into the Exodus, you thought they was writing Paleo-Hebrew fluently? Nah, they was writing them hieroglyphs. There was Egyptians. All their custom and ways was of that of Egypt, no different than today, our ways of America. So, gain knowledge, man. With more knowledge, you gain understanding and wisdom. And it's hard to box you in. So that's what I'm saying. The Bible was compiled with different knowledge and different doctrines at different times. So the Bible we have today is an amalgamated text with many doctrines into it. I told y'all the 7-day creation story is Babylonian. That ain't Hebrew. That's Babylonian. That was a new doctrine added to the Tanakh when they was dealing with the building of the Tanakh in 450 BC during the return of the captivity, dealing with the time of Ezra. When they compiled that Bible during that day, that was nothing in comparison to what Moses came with, which was law, statutes, and commandments. Now with this Tanakh, you got stories of the prophets in there. Ain't nothing wrong with having the stories of the prophets, but don't add it to what it was originally to the Torah. Let the Torah stand alone, and you had the books over here somewhere. Don't add it in for those who want to talk about pure doctrine, showing you that the Bible had new doctrine added to it throughout the ages. So anybody talking about new doctrine and new age doctrine being brought, think about how your new age doctrines was brought through the Bible throughout the ages. The New Testament. Now you have a division between Old Testament Hebrews and New Testament Hebrews based off what? New doctrine coming into the text. Word up. Right, King, like how Daniel described the Ancient of Days as a man with corporeal image. Exactly. Like the description that they gave with Daniel as the Ancient of Days, a lot of people think that's the Most High. That's not the Most High. That's just an angel, a deity, come showing you his splendor and glory. And still showing you that deity has physicality because it has shape and form, although that deity is an angel. Showing you that the angel or the angelic world or the spiritual world is physical, is just as physical as the spiritual world. The physical world. The spiritual world is just as physical as the spiritual world when you're in the realm. It's things that are tangible. It's things that are solid. It's things that are soft to the touch. It's liquid, fluid, all in the spiritual world just as in the lower realm. The truth will punch you in the throat. No doubt. That's actual facts. Because when you feel the truth, you feel it in the throat, and you get that lump, just like when you're about to cry for someone, you hear someone pass and you get that lump in your throat. That's part of that truth. That's an unbearable truth, an inevitable truth that hits you in your throat. They say the throat chakra, and it hits you in your heart. You feel it in your heart chakra. For those who like to deal with the chakra doctrine, I'm not too big on it, but I did the knowledge on it. I could tamper with it. I can make it make sense. That's what I feel. Knowledge is very important. Yes, indeed, Edwin. Knowledge is very important. And that's not just dealing with spirituality. That's dealing with all knowledge. Get everything. The more knowledge you gain, just the better you are. I don't care what it is. You know what I mean? When we go to school, we don't learn one things. We got different subjects in school. Math, science, philosophy, literature. We learn it all in school. So what would what would be any different in the spiritual world as well? You think they ain't got subjects in the spiritual world for you to learn? OAHSPE goes in depth about the spiritual side or the spiritual education. They got factories for weaving, light. Like you can make crowns out of light. Like fabric. They have certain fabrics in the spiritual world that we don't have. See, these are the advantage as you cross over in spirituality or cross over in spirit after you die. The benefits that come with the spirit world. There's certain benefits that come with the spiritual world that precedes the physical world. So it's things that we can't even describe physically. We'll have to observe it spiritually, and trying to describe spiritually what we see physically is incomprehensible sometimes. I've heard people say they didn't tapped in and seen colors you can't describe because there's no colors to describe it. Things on that nature. So the spiritual world is definitely majestic when it comes to that. Mystical Munchies, what's good? Soul family, what is your perspective on the Jews creating the Muslim religion? Well, the Jews creating the Muslim religion. Well, you know what? That kind of coincides a little bit with what happened in the OAHSPE, because see, like, when it comes to religion, I go to the source, the head, the cause, and the cause are the deities. You know what I mean? Mortals are used as pawns by the deities to establish these religions. So I go to the deity. So the deity that established Christianity, modern day Judaism, that's crazy. Modern day Judaism and modern day Christianity was established by a false god Luamon, who styled himself the false Christ. Modern day Islam, as we know it today, who was inspired, where the Prophet Muhammad was inspired in the 5th, 6th century AD, was the god Jibril, falsely styled Allah. So when you know and understand the text of how these heavenly wars took place first before they manifested on earth, OAHSPE describes how the false Christ, being Luamon, had a warrior angel named Jibril, the same Jibril that came to Muhammad. But Jibril worked for Luamon. This is like some mafia shit when you read the OAHSPE. It's like some mafia bosses of bosses that we're dealing with. It's a dope-ass story, the way it lays it out and how it transpired on earth. So long story short, the false Christ Luamon promised Gabriel, if you establish me a base on earth, I'm going to promise you a heavenly kingdom and some slaves to go with that heavenly kingdom for your own self. So Luamon and Gabriel made a covenant and agreement for that. So Gabriel did the dirty work. What was the dirty work? Establishing Christianity for Luamon. That's what Gabriel did for Luamon. And the icing on the cake was during the time of Constantine. When Constantine put the stamp on Christianity, that was Luamon's foothold on the earth. But the dirty work was done by Gabriel. So now when it was time for Gabriel to get his reward from Luamon for establishing Christianity in heaven and on earth, Luamon reneged. And when Luamon reneged, Jibril stated, I'm going to establish my own heavenly kingdom and raise me up a prophet and expose who you are as the false Christ. And that's exactly what Jibril did. He raised up Muhammad, inspired Muhammad, and then 12 years, on the 13th year after Gabriel's dealing with Muhammad went to war on the 13th year. And ever since then, it's been war between the Christians and Muslims. And the Jews, Christianity, all that is one and the same. All that comes out the same branch, because the earliest Christians, the first Christians, were Jews. So, and then it's not really much nationality at this point. It's more like religious beliefs and concepts that they're fighting over. And Gio was good, if I'm saying that right. OAHSPE says Zion are vampires. Sounds like Zion or Zionism. Yeah, definitely. You know what I mean? It's like vampires. See, OAHSPE talks about evil spirits with different characteristics and different, basically, characteristics. So, you know, you have vampire spirits. You know what I mean? What do vampires do? They suck the blood. These spirits suck the sustenance out of humans, or suck, you know, take your life force. You have other spirits called engrafters. They engraft on spirits. They engraft on people. That's where your reincarnators come from. Your spirits who claim to be reincarnated, or people who claim reincarnation, claiming to be someone from the past. These are different spirits who move in the spiritual world. And these are, keep in mind, these are one-time human beings. So this human being, the human being who's dedicated to witchcraft and reincarnation doctrines and actually allow spirits to speak to them, these are your same people when they cross over in spirit who continue to influence other spirits in spirit and influence mortals through inspiration. So you could determine through inspiration what type of person is being influenced. So if you walk in the streets and you see somebody just angry and upset, cussing and fussing to themselves, and they talking to nobody but themselves, that's how you determine the inspiration on that person, the spirit influence on that person. The more you in control of yourself, the more you in control of your own native spirit that the Creator gave you. When you angry and outside of yourself, the more you have influential spirits taking over your body and possessing you. That's what possession is, obsession. When you lose focus and them angels, them spirits, he off key, he off balance. Let's use that opportunity to use his body as a vehicle to drive our force. Because you have certain spirits who've died and they want to get back in the corporeal body. They're not progressing. They lost their physical body. All they know, just like today, any worldly person who don't know about God and just goes to work, come home, watch TV, these are the people, when they cross over by, they die on accident. Or they go before their time and they have no spiritual concept. These are the souls that try to fight to come back in corporality, come back in the physical body, because that's all they know. They don't understand the progression of spirit at that time. Jews and Muslims, Christians, Mohammedans are very similar, as well as other two branches of religion, Hinduism and Brahmanism, or Brahman. That's right. What Christianity and Islam is to the east is what Brahmanism and Buddhism is to the west. Is what Christianity and Islam is to the west is what Brahmanism and Buddhism is to the far east. They got their clashes going on, just like the Muslims and the Christians. Let's see. Yeah, just like the Muslims and the Christians, they got the Brahmin wars, the Buddhist wars, all that. The OAHSPE covers all that too. For thousands of years, these battles been going on. We better off in the West, in America, better off being in them Eastern countries. You know what I mean? Like anywhere starting from the Gaza Strip going east, further east, like to Persia, Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, India. We better off over here in the West than in them countries. Them countries you don't have freedom of speech in them countries and freedom of doctrine and religion like you have in the West. Y'all think the West is corrupt. The West is not corrupt. The West is only corrupt because a false god by the name of Luamong decided to plant his little false Illuminati, false Uncle Sam system upon us. But prior to Uncle Sam coming over here, prior to the transatlantic slave trade, the indigenous natives was living in peace. You don't hear about multiple gods when you come to the Native Americans. You don't hear about bloodshed in the history of the Native Americans. The only time we really hear about real bloodshed in the history of America is when the Europeans came and that whole situation with the transatlantic slave trade. But when you look at the history of the East, the Far East, from Africa to Afghanistan to Persia to India to China, you hear great wars going on, great battles. Nations is decimating nations. And that's documented history you could find in Africa. How many African battles, tribes going against tribes? When you look at the Narmer Pala, which is one of the oldest documents, archives, 3000 BC, it shows Narmer grabbing the hair of his enemy and about to slay him. And then on the Narmer Pala, you see heads chopped off between legs. 3000 BC, bloodshed going on in Africa. So that's why I say get off the nationality, get off the tribe, get off the nationality talk, because every nation committed bloodshed among their own people and among other nations. Thousands and thousands of years that been going on. So Israel, you are not special. Anybody claiming hard nationality, you're not special. Moors, I love y'all. Y'all all fall in the same pothole. Muslims got just as much bloodshed as any other nation. Didn't they kill off a lot of people to establish Islam? They chopping heads. If you don't bow down to Islam, they chopping your head off. That's documented history. Same thing with Christianity at one time. If you ain't bow down to that cross, they chopping your head off or they crucifying you. Roman capital punishment was crucifixion. The Jews, if you broke the law, if you broke the laws, you get stoned to death. That's your own people stoning you to death. So what's the big hype about this nationality when everybody killing each other in their own tribes and among the nations? So it's showing you that we got to vibrate on a higher level. We spiritual beings, and we got to start acting like spiritual beings. We are brothers and sisters and under one creator. If you study haplogroups, we all connected through the Y chromosome. Every man is connected through the Y chromosome. The Lords and gods are wilding in the Middle East. Goddamn right they wilding in the Middle East. If you want to see what's going on in the heavens, go watch the East. The inspirations that mortals are driven by is inspiring from the angels. Anytime there's war, it's angelic influence going on, because that's not normal. The Creator didn't design you to be out here going to war. He created you as a peaceful spiritual being, because it's progression after this physical death. So if your whole contention is war, then after you cross over, you're gonna be stuck in the lower realm. The worst thing to be is crossed over, to die in battle. To be going to war and die in battle, whether on a level of government warfare or whether on a level of gang warfare on the street level. It's all the same thing. It's contentions, it's bloodshed, it's warfare. So if you die in a street gun battle, or if you die over in Iraq, it's the same spiritual birth. You're gonna be born in chaos and spirit on the battlefield, still fighting in spirit. Because, we think when we die, we die. But not knowing you cross over, you just as alive as you are now. You ain't going to be sitting in no grave waiting for Gabriel to blow the trumpet when you die. Soon as you die, your spirit is active, just like it's active as it is now. The reason you alive is because of your spirit. That's what animates you. That's what gives you consciousness and the ability to even comprehend the Creator, comprehend the learner alphabet, comprehension and understanding. And one time, man didn't have an alphabet. And one time, man's alphabet was goo goo gaga. Sounds of the animals before man comprehended real communicating and real language and had a script. OAHSPE shows you that development that man went through. Just like a baby. A baby don't come into the world knowing English or any language. Ain't no baby ever came into the world talking about, hey, what's going on? I just came out the womb. Nah. That baby come out the world crying, goo goo gaga, and then what you begin to do as the baby starts to get a little older and months pass by, you start teaching them the alphabet. The baby starts to comprehend. It's the same thing with men in the beginning as he started out on this corporeal world. Started out crawling before walking. What's that? Mercy was good. I see you, sis. The Lakota natives have a creation story of being led out of a cave after a flood by a trickster being. I heard of that too. Exactly. No doubt. In the OAHSPE, it talks about the great flood, the deluge, or better yet, the sinking of the continent of Pan. Pan was a continent that was located in the Pacific Ocean. And this was originally part of the Earth creation. Just like how we have the 7 continents today, Pan was one of the original continents prior to its sinking. Now, some people say Pangea, but the concept of Pangea is when all the landmass was one. But we're not talking about when all the landmass was one. It was actually another continent called Pan that was located in the Pacific Ocean. And this continent, 25,000 years ago, sank underwater. And it is that flood document that all nations have today as the recording of a flood that took place in the past. OAHSPE covers that flood. And when the natives came to it, for example, like when the flood took place, like in the Bible, it talks about Noah. In the OAHSPE, Noah wasn't a person. It was the name of the 17th arc cycle after the creation of man. You have to understand the arc cycles of 3,000-year periods to really digest what I'm saying. But I'm just giving it to you raw because I didn't lay out videos for decades on these subjects. But the ark was named Noah, and that was the 17th arc cycle. That was the time when the Creator decided he's going to sink the continent of Pan due to man's grade. Man had descended below the grades, meaning that man had returned to a beast nature. Man had become cannibal. Man was walking on all fours. Man was just as vile as just as dangerous as the animals in nature. So only a remnant was still pure in that sense of having consciousness and comprehension and civil ways compared to the other nations who had descended down to bestiality for the most part. So OAHSPE describes how 12,420 souls were saved, and these 12,420 souls were saved, and they was commanded to build boats. The same way how they say in the Bible that Noah was to build a boat, but they built 138 ships. And then they got within the ships when the deluge came. And then these ships was divided into 5 fleets: Shem, Ham, Japheth, Yesta, and Gautama. But these ships wasn't, like in the Bible, they got you as believing Shem, Ham, and Japheth as people. But in the OAHSPE, these are not people, but the names of the fleets of the ships that congregated together. There were 34 ships a fleet. So there were 34 ships for the fleets of Ham, 34 ships for the fleets of Shem, and likewise with Japheth and Gautama. And there was 2 ships that were designated to themselves called Yesta, and they designated to go to Japan after the flood. Now this is 25,000 years ago. So 25,000 years ago, after the flood, when the continent sunk, and they were sitting on the waters for 150 days, and then the waters descended to its level. When the fleets of Ham landed, they landed on the coast of Africa. And the people that came out them boats started inhabiting the land of Africa, and there was different nationalities, not just one nationality. Same thing with Japheth, they landed on the coast of China and started migrating inward. Same thing with Shem, they migrated on the coast of India and started migrating inward. And the ship Gautama, they landed in Mesoamerica, in Middle America, like where Mexico, like right where the continents connect from South and North America, right there, where you found a lot of them ancient artifacts, the Mayan, all that stuff. Central America is where Gautama. Now, this Gautama wasn't in the Bible. The Gautama was not mentioned in the Bible. The Gautamites was basically the indigenous Americans. They spread it out north-south from Central America. And Yesta was a ship that landed in Japan. And the Bible will talk about the ships or the people of Japan. So when we talk about the flood, or the Native Americans talk about the flood, OAHSPE shows it dates back to 25,000 years ago, coming down to our times now. So the Bible don't talk about the Native Americans and the history of the Native Americans, while the OAHSPE touch on the history of the Native Americans pre-flood and post-flood. What about the clicking sound language in Africa? Yes, those are some of the earliest, just like I was saying, kind of like the Google Gaga language. It was kind of like that. Man expressed sounds. Just like with language. Prior to written scripts, petroglyphs was the first language, which was the symbols and signs of objects describing the direction. So if you had a spear pointing that way, you'll know to go that way, or if a spear pointing that way, you know to go that way. But petroglyphs was the oldest language before written scripts. So same thing with sounds, same thing with language. Man communicated with sounds before actually having a script. And some of these expressions are still done today, like the sis said about the clicks. That's done by the South African bush people. Those are the people who got the oldest Y chromosome on the planet. And they light-skinned and they little people. They're not dark-skinned Congo Africans. The South African bushmen and bushwomen. And it's crazy because they kind of got like Asian features to themselves as well. They kind of got Asiatic features. They don't have the hardcore Congo, Central African, dark-skinned look. These dudes is light-skinned, looking like slight Asians a little bit. And they got the oldest chromosome. So that's interesting in itself. A continent was found under the ocean by New Zealand, no doubt. Yeah, they got so many underground ruins because the earth has went through so many cosmic events. See, that's another thing the scriptures don't talk, or the Bible don't talk about, that the OAHSPE talks about. Cosmic events. It talks about times when the earth is showered down with molten lava, sand, oil, fire from the heavens, because these things exist in the heavens, as above, so below. The same way we get snow, sleet, and rain, there are parts when the earth travels through the cosmos that these things rain down. OAHSPE call it aja, different atmospheric densities that when the earth passed through, these densities, these atmospheric belts of those areas, they break, or the density is thick enough for it to fall down into our atmosphere. And that's how sometimes we get these, like even volcanoes and some of these things, you think it came from the earth. Some of the stuff came from the heavens and fell down and covered over with water, with beds of sand. And beneath that, you have this coal and this fire. You think it came from the earth when it came from the heavens. OAHSPE gives you these mysteries about the atmosphere, the earth, and the cosmos that it journeys through. It gets deep. Savage Hills. I don't mean to interrupt, but do you think the story behind the giants being lawless, bloodthirsty, creating all types of evil were false doctrine? And do you believe angels impregnate women? All right, good question. Now, to deal with the first one, that's kind of like coming from the story of Enoch. You know what I mean? You had the giants and they interbred and all that stuff. Now, yeah, even in the OAHSPE, and that was kind of eye-catching to me, because even in the OAHSPE, it talks about how the angels in the beginning interbred with primitive man, creating a new offspring. Now, when I first found, when you first hear that angels interbreeding, that don't make no sense. But OAHSPE gives you some perspective on that. It said that the humans, or the women, I should say, the women who were pregnant and did not have children, who actually like having a miscarriage, having an abortion, those spirits are still progressing in spirit, although they didn't live a physical life. They still inhabit a spiritual life, because once a person is born through conception, once that baby starts breathing, it's a living being. So although it didn't live a physical life, it'll continue its journey in spirit. So now OAHSPE was saying that in the beginning, it was a set of angels that never lived a corporeal life. So when they lightened upon the planet, just giving you a quick synopsis of how angels interbreed with mortals. When these angels came to the planet to raise up Asu, or primitive man, to teach him how to walk upright, to teach him how to clothe himself, basically to start civilizing him for his spiritual progression on a physical level. But these angels, when they manifested, it talks about a time when the angels could manifest physically as flesh and blood to mortals. But these angels were angels who died in infancy. So this is their first time experiencing a physical life. And their duty, like I said, was to raise up Asu. So it said that they were tempted and that they partook of the tree of life, which meaning that they interbred with primitive man, and they created another offspring of man. And this man was called man, or Abel, meaning having the ability to comprehend. Because primitive man at that time was like I said, like the baby who can't comprehend the Google Gaga state. That's what the whole purpose of the angels was coming there for, to help give them speech, to help raise them. The earliest, like in the OAHSPE talks about language, and it talks about how the angels gave mortals language. The same way the Dogons talk about how the Nomos came down and gave them glyphs, and they learned these glyphs as a language, kind of like that in antiquity, in the beginning with man. But long story short, the angels did interbreed with man in the beginning, but these particular angels were angels who did not live a corporeal life. Not all the angels broke that commandment, just those who didn't live a corporeal life in the past. So OAHSPE touches on that vaguely, and it shows that we are definitely part angelical. We are definitely part extraterrestrial, because when these beings came, they manifested with flesh and blood. The OAHSPE say that these beings manifested with flesh and blood. Now, when you look at blood types, you have A, AB, O blood type. Now they say O is a rare blood type. They say O is a foreign blood type to the planet, when you look at certain articles or research about blood type. So if these angels did manifest with a blood type, it would have had to been blood O, because A and B, and A or B is native and indigenous to the planet. But if these angels manifested themselves by the will of their, like they also say, by their own will, clothe themselves with flesh and bone. So they took particles of the atmosphere, or dust and basically clothe themselves with material from the earth. Now that's spiritual intelligence that we ain't even capable of doing yet, but it's still showing you what's going on and the advantages of these spiritual beings that they have above us. Because we can't just, dematerialize our physical body and then materialize our physical body. We can't do that. But the angels could do that. They could appear invisible to us and they could appear visible to us. So definitely, we are definitely have extraterrestrial blood, and it could be through the O blood, because AB, and A and B is native to the planet. But O, they say, is rare. It's a rare blood type. Dominu Castro is good. What does it do? All right, I see you. Nation of Islam says we are Black Asiatics, America. That is the tie into those South Africans that look Asia, or they look like us. I see what you're saying, but see, the problem with that is that those people, the Bush people of South Africa, the Bushman in South Africa, who got the oldest Y chromosome, A00, A00, or A000, one of the two. Their gene pool is in Africa. You know what I mean? So the Asiatics, the Africans that left and went into Asia, so they say, those would be a stock that would be Asiatic coming back in. Like when you look at, all right, so by the time, let's say Egypt, 6,000 years ago, when the Egyptians talk about the Asiatics, the Amu coming in from Asia coming in. Now their gene pool, their Y chromosome originally started in Africa. When you trace the haplogroups, the oldest haplogroup started in Africa. Then it shows you a migration coming out of Africa into Asia. And then from Asia, they spread out in Europe and the other areas. But when in Asia, they was there thousands of years. So by the time they come in, say by the time of the dynastic times in Egypt, 6,000 years ago, they coming back in to Africa as Asiatics, but they looking like foreigners now compared to the to the Egyptians, because the Egyptians looked at everybody coming in from Asia as foreigners. They didn't look at them like their native brothers, like some of the tribes that would be in Africa. They looked at these dudes like, all right, these are foreigners. Hekakasu, foreign rulers. So there's definitely a connection. Like I said, we all connected through the Y chromosome, through the haplogroups. What do you think about the shape of the planet Earth? Planet equal plane. Personally, I know it's flat as a circle. What do you think, brother? What I think it's a globe. I think it's a globe. That's what I think. There's fat planes on a globe, yes, no doubt. But we can't have an atmosphere, because atmos and fair is spherical. It'll have to be an atmos dome. But that's just my take on it. You know what I mean? I already explained my position on what as far as the Earth being a flat or a globe. The only two examples we got objectively is the sun and the moon. If one of those joints, if the moon was a flat disk and the sun was a globe, then I could raise a better argument. But being that the sun is a gas and it's a globe in its appearance, and the moon is a solid object and it's a globe in its appearance, we're viewing that objectively. We cannot view the Earth objectively. We only subjected to it. A plane could only go so far in the atmosphere. A satellite could only go as far as the atmosphere. If there's a dome, you can't get the whole image of the planet, because you have to go outside the dome to get an objective view. The Sumerians, the Anunnakis, they mapped out the solar system, and they showed you a picture of the Anunnakis and how they mapped out the solar system, and they showed you that it was globular in appearance. And if anybody could really determine the size of the planet or the shape of the planet, would be somebody who had to leave, who had to come from out of the atmosphere coming in. And the Anunnaki stand for what? Those who from heaven came. So they would have had an objective view of the solar system and the planet. and they described it as being global. And that's the oldest document as far as celestial beings being global or flat. The Egyptians and them, the Hindus and all that came after that. But that's my take on it, not to go deep into the whole flat earth thing, because that's a subject that I don't really indulge in, because I'm here to teach spiritual progression, and that, you know, the flat earth don't talk about the Etherian realms that exist outside the earth and its atmosphere. It got you believing that we're stuck in a ball, so there's no spiritual progression outside of the earth and its atmosphere. So we don't indulge too deep in that. Yes. I'm one, what's that? I'm O negative. Yeah. O negative is a rare blood type. I'm O. My mother's O negative. You know what I mean? So coming back to that, the native blood type, you know, because like I said, we are mammals. You know what I mean? We're going to become spiritual beings, but we're still animal in nature. So the blood types determine, you know, you got that, they talk about the rhesus blood type. You got blood types where they talk about, you know, man came from monkey. You got all these theories about these blood types. But when you research blood type O, they'll let you know that's a rare blood type. You got different speculations on that blood type. Some will tell you that that blood type is foreign to the planet. It's not normal to the planet. It's not indigenous to this planet. While others will say you got traces of blood type found in certain animals or gorillas is rare. So coming back to these beings, if any being had to manifest on the planet as flesh and blood, they would have to have a blood type that is foreign to this planet. And O fits that description, dealing with the blood types. And if we're dealing with extraterrestrial that actually interbred with primitive man at that time. Mercy, what's good? Fire in space shapes itself into a ball, right? Water does the same, correct. Earth would be inside a water ball, or as land. Earth needs a barrier between the space, no doubt. So yeah, earth and fire and water forms global. They're global in appearance. They form shapes. They form globes in zero gravity. So that's why I say that, you know what I mean? And see the OAHSPE explains the vortex, you know, vortexian current. Like when you understand vortexian currents create global celestial bodies. That's why the moon is global. That's why the sun is global, based off this vortexian rule, this vortexian principle that all creation abides by. So that's why it's kind of hard to just dismiss the fact that the sun and the moon are global. You can't explain why that is, but then you can explain the earth is flat, being subjective, and that's an argument that nobody will ever win. But we do know for a fact that the sun and the moon are global in appearance. Why are they global in appearance? Why is the sun and moon global in appearance? If you could explain why, then you could explain those same principles for the earth. What does it say here? I wonder if we're all the same type. Now, if you're speaking of like blood types, yeah, we all connected. We're all Homo sapiens sapien. This is why a lot of people who deal with religion don't want to deal with science, because science is going to prove that we all connected spiritually, physically. We're all one. We all share the same blood. You know, when I heal people with my herbs, with bittersweet herbals, when people come for me for herbs, I deal with all nationalities and walks of life. I deal with people that look Asiatic. I deal with people that look like they from India. I got people that look like me. I got Europeans, and they all get the same results from the tea. You know why? Because we all share the same blood. And what that blood is iron. Iron is a mineral. We're all made up of minerals. That's why I say we are mineralites. You can't deny the fact that we are mineralites. From the darkest person who got the darkest skin complexion to the whitest European, their skin is still carbon-based. The greater the concentration of carbon, the darker the skin. The less concentration of carbon, the lighter the skin. The proof of that is in the charcoal. When you barbecue, when you look at a charcoal, it's dark skin. The high concentration of carbon in that charcoal. But when you light the fire to that charcoal and you burn out the carbon in that charcoal, what that charcoal color turns into? It turns pale. It turns gray, turns translucent. That's like the European. When they lack carbon, their skin just turns pale. It's just a lack of carbon. You're not no better than them because you got more carbon. The truth comes from comprehension and understanding and progression. So we all on the same page at this point, like every human being on the planet. It's like we all on the same page. We all comprehend. We all go through the same experiences. We all come from the same planet. What about Atlantis and Lemuria? Now, those really are the story of Pan. The only proof of a continent sunken in the water on that scale is found in the Pacific. The continent of Pan. When that continent sunk, OAHSPE gives you a description how they sunk the continent. 250,000 spaceships surrounded the continent in lines of 1,000. And they contracted, what was that? Tenfold to crack the crust of a continent. And they cracked the crust. So they created a hinge around the continent. And then they cracked it and then compressed it and sunk it in the water. Now they have something called the Ring of Fire. Google the Ring of Fire, and you will see that it's a ring of fire around the Pacific Ocean, coming from where Japan is, coming all the way from the coast down to California, from Alaska, from Japan, Alaska to California. That whole ring, like a big 180. They call that the Ring of Fire. That's the region where the Etherian angels contracted tenfold and cracked and suppressed the continent. Those regions are unstable. You look up the Ring of Fire on Google, they'll tell you that those regions is unstable regions because it's a continent they suppress, that the Etherian angels suppressed 25,000 years that's under there. And you look up the coast of Okinawa, Japan, it shows you remnants of underground monuments, even pyramids, massive megalith underwater. The evidence are there. So Atlantis, Lemuria was really the continent of Pan, because OAHSPE goes deep into that. It gives you a map of the continent of Pan drawn out back in 1881, when that wasn't even a discovery yet. They was looking for the missing continent in the Atlantic Ocean. That's what they was looking for, the missing continent, but they was wrong the whole time. They was supposed to be in the Pacific. Because if you look at the ocean floor of the Pacific and the ocean floor of the Atlantic, it's different. The Atlantic ocean floor is more natural in a sense. It doesn't look like it has no interference going on. But when you look at the ocean, the Pacific Ocean and its floor, there is a 7-mile drop off the Pacific Ocean. So if you were to walk from the beach and just walk out, let's just say hypothetically speaking, it's a 7-mile drop, a straight drop in the Pacific Ocean, somewhat off the coastline. Not close off the coastline, but deep off in the ocean. Coming again, that's where they hedged around the continent and suppressed it and sunk the continent of Pan in the Pacific Ocean. And from that continent, the families dispersed east and west to repopulate the planet after the flood 25,000 years ago. And here we go, here we are today. What's that? Rashad TV. Could it be the fact that our eyes itself is global? Yeah. Yeah. Everything is global. The earth is 75% water. You put the earth in, if you put 75% water in a zero gravity environment, it's going to form a globe. There's only, 25% crust on the planet and 75% water. That crust is not the dominant factor. The water is. So the water is going to determine the shape, not the crust. The crust is subjected to the water on the planet. But that's a whole nother argument. But we got here. Just ordered my home blood type test kit. I'm gonna be here tomorrow. I can find out 2 minutes. Yeah, I bet. So yeah, keep us abreast with that. So you know what I mean? Like if I go live the next day or whenever I go live again, you could let us know the blood type. Because blood types is important. Because keep in mind, your blood type got a lot to do with your nature, your behavior. So if your blood type is more animalistic in nature, you know, a gorilla's blood type is more like AB. You carry that blood type, you may notice you may have more animalistic behavior in nature. a lot of O blood types is kind of, I notice people who got O blood type, they deal with more cosmology. They deal with more off the planet material. But the hard body who don't believe in spirituality, or they have more of an A blood type, B blood type. Not saying that's the determining factor. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just using that as an example that the people I came across that was O blood, they had more of a cosmic curiosity instead of just a low vibrating nature, or more just concerned with earthly matters in a sense. Savage was good. If they had all those structures in Pan, how were there primitive people? Good question. Now, the people wasn't primitive. This is where you have to understand the arc cycle of 3,000 years, because the OAHSPE breaks down the behavior of humans during the arc cycle of 3,000 years. So the beginning of every arc cycle, man comes to new inventions, new intelligence, and man, say for example, man is in a primitive state. He's still writing, rubbing rocks. And then the next arc cycle, man is gonna deal with metal. So for each arc cycle, man perfects whatever talent is given to him in that arc cycle. But then at the ending of that arc cycle, man will descend into war and destruction towards the ending of every arc cycle. And then this is where they descend back into bestiality and primitiveness at the ending of the arc cycle. So in the OAHSPE, from the creation of man, it gives you a way to track time. So you got the first arc cycle after the creation of man, the second arc cycle after the creation of man. And these arc cycles are 3,000-year periods. So it gives you a time period and a time span from the creation of man to when the flood took place, from when the flood took place to where we're at today. So from the creation of man to the flood is 16 arc cycles of 3,000 years, giving us 48,000 years, 50,000 years from the creation of man to the flood. At the 10th arc cycle, 30,000 years after the creation of man, man reached the first peak of civilization. The same, when you read the description of the first era of civilization that the OAHSPE describes, it's similar to how we live in today. Man had telescopes, man had boats, man was sailing, man inhabited all the continents and islands at that time. Now this is 30,000 years after the creation of man. And that's the 10th arc cycle. Now when we go from the 10th arc cycle to the 16th arc cycle, now is where man had descended down to a point on this particular continent where man was moving as beast. And the decree went forth to sink the continent to preserve the whole. See, this is where you got to study the OAHSPE to really get a deep understanding, because it's read plain, but I'm trying to suppress all this in this question. So yeah, the primitive people didn't build the megalithic monuments. Those predate that time period is going back. So those records, those megalithic structures are old as well. They're very old structures. But you got to understand the arc cycles of the time periods that came with that, from the creation of man to the first time of the era of civilization in the 10th arc cycle, coming to the 16th arc cycle when the flood took place and the condition that man was in when these Etherian angels came. Because they bore the record. Because man couldn't bore the record. If he's moving like a savage, how is he going to write down and document the history? The history was documented by the angels when they came, and the documentation was stored in the libraries of heaven. And that's how we got the information today. These ain't no information you're gonna get out of corporeal books or out of history books. This information was documented by the angels when they came and bore witness and kept a record. And now we're able to study these records that came down spiritually. Now that's some deep shit right there. Because we so used to just finding books in history that's been, translated or such and such throughout the ages, but to have a book to come and it was channeled through angels, and some of this information wasn't even tracked historically, and it lines up with history, that's amazing. You don't find too many books like that. Throat puncher, so true. I've been on this since I was a kid. Oh, blood and off planet remark you made. See that? Verifying what I'm saying. Verifying what I'm saying. Not saying that anybody with AB or AOB blood type don't think like that, but just dealing with, the idea that if O is a foreign blood type, it makes sense. while we think outside the box. Savage Hill, that sounds like what's going on. Slowly dumbing down us. Thanks for the knowledge. No doubt, no doubt. You know what I mean? But we live in a you know what I mean? We living in a time of information, so that's why it's dope to just get as much information as you can, because a lot of mysteries of old are being revealed and unlocked. But if we caught up in just Christianity, Islam, and the ancient Kemetic studies and not indulging in some of these new age books, these new age information, then how will we know? How do we compete and even combat the information if you don't study it? That's why I think a lot of the Israelites, you know, they kind of wean away from the OAHSPE because they scared to face change. Because the OAHSPE is going to change your soul. It's not going to change your physical appearance. You could wear fringes all day and be the most evilest cat on the planet. You know, you think them Pharisees and Sadducees ain't have on fringes when they were trying to persecute and kill Yeshua? Come on, let's be realistic. So let's not get up in clothing. Them fringes are going to be here on earth when you die. And your spirit, your spiritual fringes, that's the real fringes right there. Them fringes you got on your clothes, you know, the police will come lock your ass up and throw that shirt off and throw it in a room somewhere, strip you naked to go check to see if you got any things and lock your ass up. Let's not play stupid. It's the spiritual growth that counts. We are mineralites. The more you enhance your minerals, you increase your spiritual vibration, your spiritual velocity, which is your spirit, you tap into the unseen realm. You tap into outside of 700 nanometers. 300 nanometers. You tap into the spiritual realm when you raise your vibrational frequency. How do you raise your vibrational frequency? Eating right. Your herbs, your fruits. Now, I know everybody ain't gonna eat fruits and herbs every day, but you have a whole life ahead of you to prepare yourself. So don't think you're just gonna wake up overnight and get on a journey eating fruits and vegetables every day and they're the end, or you're just not gonna get that craving to eat something else. Yeah, that's part of the journey. The ups and downs. Throw a punch and read the OAHSPE and get free, kings and queens, no doubt. Exactly. The OAHSPE don't teach you to be bound to a God. The OAHSPE teach you to acknowledge Creator through creation, learn the seasons and cycles of creation, because that's how you learn the Creator. The Creator has no beginning and ending. No beginning and ending. So in order to comprehend something like that, you cannot. The only way to comprehend something like that, if it has a function. So the Creator gave us a function for us humans to comprehend something that is incomprehensible. And the function of the Creator is creation in itself, because in order for us to exist, we got to exist on the planet as human beings. We can't exist, just pop out and be in the universe floating as human beings. No, we have to have a foundation, and that foundation for us to exist is the planet. The planet has a way it was created. The planet is subjected to the solar system. So you can't have a planet without the solar system. So the solar system is the parent, that's the master, the vortex, that's the head, the solar system. Without the sun, nothing would exist on the planet. So that shows you right there that the sun is the head. He's the head honcho, the head Negro in charge. So the sun had to come into existence. So how did the sun come into existence? See, the OAHSPE lays out creation for us to comprehend the Creator. The sun came into existence through the vortex. The vortex is when you take gas. So when you look at ash clouds and when you look at creation and you look at those gases, you may see gases in the creation. Like when you pull up galaxies and pull up nebula belts, you'll see gases. These gases will form a rotary, a vortex, a whirlwind by the Creator. Only the Creator can do this. Create the rotary, the vortex, and that vortex will take those gases. And those are the same gases we're familiar with, some we're not familiar with, but hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen. Let's use that for a sake, because that's what our planet is made up of. So we'll take these minerals, helium, oxygen, all these gases, and condense it in the center. And when these gases condense in the center, it creates a ball of fire. The sun is a ball of fire. And that sun now is capable of producing celestial bodies within the vortex of that sun. But that sun has to be the foundation first in order for the other celestial bodies to exist. So now that the sun is created due to the vortex, now the vortex is a big ass belt and other belts within it, and the sun is in the center. So on the outstreams of these Vortexian belts of the sun, the Vortexian belt of the sun, you have smaller vortices that'll create other celestial bodies. These are the planets. Now, Earth is one of the planets that is subjected to the solar system. They say we're the third rock from the sun, or whatever the case may be, but we subjected to the sun and its vortex. So now that this Earth, it starts off in the same process. So the vortex of the sun will create a smaller vortex, using the gases in that area, driving those gases to the center of the vortex, creating a ball of fire, just like the sun. So before the Earth could be the Earth, it was a ball of fire like the sun. This is part of the development. Just like you was a seed, a sperm cell before you was a grown adult, it's the same process and function creation goes through. So the Earth was a ball of fire within the vortex of the sun. So you have two suns, a great big ass ball of fire and a small ball of fire. And the Earth and the sun, that ball of fire that's going to become the Earth, after the sun cools, it produces the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, an atmospheric residue, atmospheric debris is driven down on the Earth as well. No different than snow, hail, and things of that nature. But there's other atmospheric debris that descend to the planet during the time of creation. So when the fire cools down, it creates the core, the rock of the planet, which is the mineral kingdom. You take all vegetable off the planet, all vegetation, all soil off the planet, you're going to be left with minerals. So you're going to be left with the big ball, a crust of minerals, which is the portion of the Earth that comes from the fire cooling down, creating the mineral kingdom. And then from the mineral kingdom comes the vegetable kingdom. From the vegetable kingdom comes the time of inhabitation for animal and man on the planet. And then when man comes to a point where where the Earth is uninhabitable for man, he becomes extinct. And then the Earth goes into another state of barrenness. And then the Earth goes into another state where it dissipates, going back into a dust, an ash cloud. And then the process forms again. That's how the inevitable creator allows us, or the incomprehensible, to allow us to comprehend creation through the function of creation. So OAHSPE lays this out. OAHSPE lays this out, how the incomprehensible becomes comprehensible through the seasons and cycles of creation. That's why OAHSPE cold-blooded. So compare that with your 7-day creation story. And keep in mind, coming back to the real deal, the sun is a big ball of fire. Now, every celestial body goes through 4 ages. The vortex to the ball of fire, from the ball of fire cooling down to the mineral kingdom, to the vegetable kingdom, the animal and man kingdom, the time of barrenness, the time of dissipation. So the sun is going to go through that as well. Yeah, the sun is in its first state. It's a ball of fire. That sun going to cool down. And then that sun is going to turn into a crust. It's going to turn into the mineral kingdom. And then that same sun that rises every day, that sun has the potential to be a planet, because there's 4 systems to every celestial body, even the moon. The moon would be considered in its 3rd stage, the time of barrenness, where nothing can generate and grow on that particular celestial body. And that's exactly where the moon is at. You try to go, ain't nothing growing on the moon, so it's in its 3rd age. It's in its age of barrenness. But then they'll tell you that there's objects on the moon. There's ancient ruins and megaliths on the moon that looks like it had to be constructed. So that will let you know that the moon at one time was inhabitable prior to its going in the state of barrenness. These are the mysteries the OAHSPE renders up, dealing with the creation and the cycles and seasons of celestial bodies. That every celestial body has a potentiality to be inhabited if it continues to go through the age. Look at Neptune. Neptune is a watery planet. They say Neptune is all water. So what stage would that put Neptune in? The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th? That'll put Neptune in the 1st stage, because it seems that water is a sign of life. So the only thing missing in Neptune is for them continents to start rising up, produce the vegetable kingdom, and then next, boom, we found life over here. You see what I'm saying? All celestial bodies go through 4 ages: a time of creation, a time of inhabitation, a time of barrenness, and a time of dissipation. And then the process starts again. So by you looking at every celestial body, the sun, the moon, the earth, you can determine what age the celestial body is in based off these 4 rules. Alpha and Omega has an end. I know my Father don't. Alpha and Omega just means beginning and ending, and then the beginning starts again. It's just like the 4 seasons. The sun, the morning is the Alpha, the evening is the Omega, and then the sun rises again. It's a consistent cycle. There is no beginning and ending, but there's a function to the way creation manifests itself. Now, when you say Father, you have to let me know, are you talking about a man sitting on the throne, or are you talking about the Creator incomprehensible? Because a lot of people who say Father, they refer to Father referring to the Christian mindset of God sitting on the throne and then Jesus sitting on the right side. Now, if you're talking about the Father in that sense, we don't acknowledge that. We acknowledge that as a deity, depending on the doctrine of that deity, whether if that deity is doing self-glorification, which we're against, or if that deity is reverencing praise to the Creator. The Creator is the Father of fathers, not a deity that you can see like yourself. Just to put that in perspective. Because over here, we deal with clarity so we don't get nothing confused, especially when it comes to our spirituality and we talking about the deity and or Father and God and Creator. We got to constantly differentiate who we really acknowledging. Aquarius, what's good? Peace, Selah. Does OAHSPE mention the rapture example of people being taken off the planet in the physical body? Now, not in the sense of the rapture comes from, the Christian concept that you're going to be taken up in the clouds and stuff like that. Nah, see, the physical body is not capable of dealing with the pressure of the atmosphere. That's why we got to take machines and go up into the atmosphere. The atmosphere is heaven. Heaven in Hebrew is Shemayim, and that means sky. The sky is the atmosphere. So the sky has of atmospheric plateaus that spiritual beings or your spirit body could exist in. When we look up and see the sky, we just see a barren wasteland. We don't see nothing because we're still terrestrial beings. Our eyesight is not capable of seeing the unseen because we see things at 700 to 300 nanometers. That's visible sight. When you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, which is the vibrational frequency of everything in creation, you see that visible light has a small spectrum on that scale. It's 700 to 300 nanometers. Now, the atmosphere moves faster than that. So we can't see the atmospheric beings or the spiritual beings in those realms. So with that being said, our only experience of being in the atmosphere is riding the plane, to be honest. Riding a plane, a helicopter, a space shuttle. That's our physical reality of experiencing heaven or the atmosphere in a corporeal body. So as far as the rapture, that'll be a false sense of spiritual progression, because the OAHSPE is like a school. It's like when you look at school, the only time you would progress or raise up to a higher level is during graduation. So if you're graduating 10th grade to 11th grade, it's at the end of the school year that this graduation takes place. So it's at an appointed time to graduate. You just can't go to school and just graduate whenever. So the rapture, it's kind of like God is going to come out the sky whenever. No, there's no time period. He's going to lift the people up in the sky. Nah, see, those are a lot of the false doctrines that gives you no clarity on where you're going or what's really the objective of why we even being caught up in the sky. You're going to be caught up to watch the destruction of the earth and clamor and clap to see what I'm saying? These are like false gods. That's like another false god capturing another false god, and their holy false gods watching their enemy go down, and they're praising their saints in their holy white garments, and they're praising. It's deep how these false gods move about with these battles and these concepts. So yeah. What's that? Incomprehensible. The Creator is incomprehensible. Yeah. If your Father's incomprehensible, but then in another breath you tell me that he's coming to the earth or he's returning, then that's not incomprehensible. Incomprehensible is one you can't comprehend, but you can comprehend through his creation. That's how you comprehend the incomprehensible. So when Yahshua, like in the OAHSPE, when Yahshua mentions the Father, he's talking about, all right, so being that most people don't understand the ranks of God, and Lord, so you could give reverence to a deity, but not worshiping. Just like you could give reverence to the ancestors, but don't worship the ancestors. The ancestors didn't create you from dust. The only person who created you was the Creator. When the Creator created mortals, it was a time of creation and then a time of cohabitation. See, people, the ancestral cats who deal with ancestral worship, they get caught up with cohabitation. Cohabitation is when you keep the gene or you keep the offspring going, you keep the fruit, the seed going. So you'll have cats who deal with ancestral. My God is my mother, my father. They the one who had me. Yeah, you're dealing with cohabitation after creation. Because you have creation and cohabitation. So those who deal with a lot of ancestral worship, you know, I worship my mother, my father, and their mother and father. Ain't nothing wrong with that, but they're not the Creator. If you go as far as back, it's going to come a point where man had to be created. Man didn't create himself out of thin air. Man is a hand-working tool of the Creator, just the same way the animals. You know what I mean? That's like the bear, the polar bear, or the gorilla saying, I worship my ancestors, my forefathers, because of cohabitation. Nah, them gorillas had to be created at one point. Just like everything else on this planet, by the Creator. The rapture is probably spiritual. What you say, Mercy? The rapture is probably spirits hijacking physical bodies. They need bodies. Exactly. See, the OAHSPE talks about how these angels or these spirits, and keep in mind, when we say spirits, angels, all these are one-time people. Keep that in mind. So to be an evil spirit is to be an evil person. So anybody you ever knew that was evil, in your life, you came across people that were just evil. They just had no good intentions. People like that, when they die and cross over and they become the spirits of the dead or they become angels, these become your evil angels. Now think about the gangs. Look at the rap game right now. Look at the bloodshed in the rap game right now. Ops killing ops on live and all this, right? All those cats who's gang banging, when they cross over in spirit, they continue their behavior in spirit. They just link up with other people with that behavior and they move as in gangs, wandering spirits. So that's a whole nother realm, because these cats, these evil spirits, they're not subjected to no concept or no religious God. At least the false gods deal with basically somewhat just worship me and I'll give you whatever whatever servitude you do, I'll give you a token of good faith. With the wandering spirits, the evil spirits, they don't follow none of those rules. They move like gangs. The same way a gang don't follow no Christian doctrine, they just moving, just looking for whatever. You have wandering angels, evil spirits that move in gangs, the same way gangs move on earth. And they go do harm to other individual spirits, or they influence morals to go do harm by inspiration. So all your young gangbangers and all you throwing up them sets, they inspired by these same spirits. Keep in mind, these gangs have been running Chicago since the 60s, even as far as back as the 20s. So think about all those gangsters that died in New York, Chicago, Detroit, and all these big states from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, all those spirits, all those collected souls that have died gangbanging, the influence and inspiration that they got in that city, because those spirits are lingering spirits within that city. That's why the crime rate is so high in cities like New York, cities like Chicago, Detroit, Cali, even here in Atlanta, is due to the inspiration of these people who crossed over and haven't learned to rise. They continue in their evil practice. My journey was good. Why do you believe we were created, seeing the world is so terrible and we suffer in it? This is your boy, Terrence. Terrence, what it do? Well, that's part of growth. When you plant a seed don't come out strong. When you plant a seed is struggling to crack through the soil. It comes in the world weak, subjected to all type of weather, bad weather. But what happens to that seed if it grows? It grows strong. It goes from weak to strong. So it's hell on earth. It's hell before heaven. You know what I mean? A child don't know good or bad. The child, you have to teach the child good or bad. So this is a reality. See, that's the beauty about the OAHSPE. It don't sugarcoat nothing. OAHSPE says you got to face the extremes of good and the extremes of. It says you got to face the extremes of good and face the extremes of evil in order to sit on the Godhead. OAHSPE say to the Ions, there was a situation where the Canaanites came into the land of the Ions and started, desecrating and killing off the Ions. And the Ions were like, why you let this happen to us? God said, you must learn to face evil on your own account. So we're in total responsibility of our own actions, basically speaking. We got to come up with methods and solutions. When you read the stories in the OAHSPE about these gods, they come up with strategies to deliver men out of hell. They just don't sit there and holy, 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 or sit there and worship Jehovah. They got to go put in some work. They got to come up with a strategy and a plan to deliver these souls out of hell. And in the process of delivering is when the power of the Creator it gets involved. And then that's when you see the powers of the Creator in the act. So yes, we're gonna go through good and bad. Ain't no silver spoons handed out. The people who go through the worst trials on earth in spirit got a greater reward. The ranks are opposite. The cats living in the big houses and the luxury car, those are the ones going to have the hardest time in spirit when they cross over, because they're going to be attached to what they had on earth, and they're going to be bound, and they're going to linger around the things that they had on earth. That's why a lot of these old houses, wealthy people, they got spirits lingering in them houses, because these spirits ain't ready to let go of what they had when they was in the material world. But the homeless man who gets persecuted, who gets spit on, but he still does good works. The poor man that does good works, that gets spit on, that's the one. And does good works, although he's being treated like that, that's the one who has a high grade in spirit. So this is why, Terrence, you got to read the OAHSPE from beginning to end, so you can see how these scenarios play out. You can see how God deal with people, see how the Creator deal with the people, see how he allowed things to transpire, the reward or the benefit that comes in the long run. Just like any other sport, you got to work, you got to go through perseverance, you got to go through hard practice in order to get to cut the team. You can't cut the team doing just half-ass and lollygagging. So it's real. It ain't sugarcoated. It's real out here. As for T.A. James was good. See you. You say we have to have all kinds of experiences to be used effectively by the Creator. Exactly. So for the person, if you're trying to get across somebody who's been gangbanging, who best to get a person who used to gangbang to get across to the gangbanger? That's why the OGs today are the ones in the streets trying to convince the young cats not to gangbang, because they went through that road. But if you did not go through that road, if you grew up in a church and never gangbang, you ain't gonna be able to reach them cats. They're not gonna listen to you. So this is why we go through trial and error. We go through perseverance. Because in the long run, everyone is going to turn to good. This is a great time to be living in, because look at YouTube and you got all these gangster documentaries. You got cats that's coming out of jail that have been locked up for 20, 30, 40 years, 20, 30 years. Cats that have been locked up in the 80s and the 90s, now coming home. And all these cats preaching the same message. Yo, don't get caught up in the streets, man. Like, do better. You ain't got to live that lifestyle. And some of these cats were straight murderers, got bodies on them. You know what I mean? And now they're talking about redemption. Look at Wayne Perry, the Michael Jordan of DC. When you hear him talk now, what he talk about? He tell you, them cats don't need to go that route. That's not the thing to do. They're speaking righteousness now, although they went through their hell. But now how many gunmen in DC respect Wayne Perry? How many killers in DC, New York, even out here respect Wayne Perry? Even the rappers put him in his name. Now, if Wayne Perry comes with the message of redemption, all those who respect Wayne Perry, what their mind state going to start to reflect? Redemption. That's why we go through trial and error, brother. That's why we go through shit. Not everybody, but those who trod that trod. Yes, sir. That's my goal, and I can discern the intuition. That's right. That's right. Discernment is everything. If you use discernment, you could avoid going down the road of destruction. That's real. But yo, I just wanted to holler at y'all for a minute because this is my second time doing a YouTube live. Just wanted to get on here, drop some gems. I may come on a little later on, and we could, do some more Q&A, drop some knowledge, test the waters, test the spirit to see if it's approved by the Creator, not of God, but of the Creator. The only time we acknowledge God is when He's telling us to serve the Creator. That's when we acknowledge God. If God is acknowledging Himself, we don't acknowledge God. If God is a man like me and you and is telling you to worship Him, run from that God. But if another God come and say, hey, I'm your brethren, I'm just sitting on the throne right now, I'm like the president, you're going to get here, you're going to sit on this throne one day too, because everybody's going to go through the experience of sitting on that throne, becoming a God, and see what it feels like to rule. No different than you see what it feels like to have a kid and be a parent. You know what I mean? You are a God to your child. You are a God to your child. You know what I mean? So everybody's going to have a chance to sit on that throne. But are you going to be true sitting on that throne, or are you going to be false sitting on that throne? Are you going to give glory to the Creator sitting on that throne? Or are you going to deceive the people and let the people know that, look, I am your God, Sky Daddy, sitting on the right side? So these are the things you got to discern, because it's your spirit. And this is the things that's going to determine your placement after death. So with that, salute, and I'm going to catch y'all later. Shalom, we out.